Meeting to order. And this is the October meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Commission. Before we get started, we have just one potential shift of the agenda. We wanted to ask if the folks interested in the tree removal are here, then we can maybe shift the staff presentation to after, just to make efficient use of your time. So looks like that would be good. Okay, great. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the September meeting. So if the commissioners want to take a look at that, or if you've already looked at it, if you can make a motion for.
I just had one small change.
Okay.
There's a line on the 7-2, converting ocean tennis courts to pickleball courts, and I believe this was a comment that I had made, the possibility of expanding current court space for seating. I didn't mean specifically for seating, just to expand the court space. There might be many different ways that extra space could be used. A very small change, but.
Great, thank you for that. Can we make note of that? Okay.
I think it was mentioned in the context of seating, so I understand the confusion, but that wasn't my intention.
Do we have a motion on the minutes with that amendment?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
All right, a second?
Second.
Okay, everyone in favor? All right. So we're going to move right along to the open public comment period. This is the period of the meeting that you can step up and make a 3-minute public comment about any item that is not on the agenda somewhere else. So if you have a general comment that is not on one of the agenda items for tonight's meeting, you can step up to the podium. And otherwise, there will be opportunities to make comment as we go through the agenda. Does anybody wish to make a general public comment? All right. Next, we have announcements from staff and commissioners. Shelley, do you want to start us off?
Yes, I have a few announcements for you. One of them is an exciting announcement that Albany Hill construction has started. They started with some of the tree removals, and they have actually cleared and staked out the path to the summit. And they are anticipating that this construction project will be done early December unless we get rain. During that time, it could be delayed. I have a few updates for things coming up in October from the Recreation Department. We have a Creekside Park cleanup with the Friends of Albany Friends of Albany Park on October 19th. That's at 9 a.m. We also are doing our Halloween Carnival, which will be on October 25th. That's in the evening from 6:30 to 8:30. Our soda tax exercise classes in the park. This is Memorial Park. We have Tai Chi that happens from 9 to 10 in the park, and the last date for that's Saturdays, is October 19th. And this Sunday is our last date for yoga, and it's from 9 to 10 also. And then on October 26th, we have our Diwali dance party, and that is really fun. We've done one before, and that's from 11 to 12 in the park. And all of that information is in the activity guide, so if you have that at home. And the last thing is that we do host a Halloween dinner at our senior center on Halloween, and it starts at 4 p.m. And that's it.
I just had one comment, which I wanted to just thank those commissioners that were able to join us for the meeting at the Creekside Park, or the Creek Park walkthrough with Susan Schwartz from Friends of Five Creeks. I know it was educational and also an opportunity to see some other areas. And I know for those that were not able to make it, if you reach out to Susan, I'm sure she'd be glad to arrange a time to see it. And it sounds like we'll be having a conversation about creeks in our December meeting with an update about the maintenance plan for streams.
I had two quick questions for Shelley about the Albany Hill work. One was, do you know roughly what the order of the work is going to be? Because it was a multifaceted plan with trail work and that along the north face of it and all kinds of things. And also, do you know if access to parts of the park will be limited, like the fire road for people that want to walk along there during this work or anything like that?
They're going to try to keep the fire road open. There may be a truck there every so often, but they're trying to keep that access open. I believe they started with trees. That was their main first step, and then working on that summit part that's where the colored cement part will come in, and then they'll work on the other lower parts of the trail, which is more just kind of regrading some spots. I think it's called the BMX area, regrading that so it's not a mountain bike area. Yeah, so that's the general idea. I think they're starting at the summit to begin with. And I do know that we have a dangling item, which is to look at the color of that cement. So they're doing a few test cement squares so that you'll have an opportunity to look at them, and that will be coming back to you. I forgot your last question. Is there one more in there?
That was, the order of the work and then access limitations. I think you answered all of that. Thanks.
Any other announcements from members of the commission? All right, moving right along. Our first item that we're going to address tonight is a street tree removal application. And we'll be skipping ahead to the Portland Avenue one because the Beverly one is not time for that one yet. So John, do you want to kick that off?
You want to let John just what's happening with the Beverly?
Great, that'd be wonderful. Thank you, sorry.
Sure. After discussing sidewalk repair alternatives and how we usually deal with sidewalk repair, the property owner decided to withdraw their application for removal. They had previously applied to plant 2 trees. They want 2 Japanese maples, and I think we can still do that and do the sidewalk repair, monitor the tree. And if eventually it fails, which it may be on its way, it's not the greatest tree. It's still got some life in it, though. There'll be 2 replacement trees in place. Yeah.
Thanks.
So we have 1113 Portland or 634 Canes on its either address or both addresses, I suppose. We have a development project, housing development, and for that project, they need to remove the 5 Melaleuca trees that are on Canes Avenue. I have pictures of them all. They're all semi-mature trees. They're all in pretty good shape. But apparently for the project, they need to be removed. The project plans include replanting, I forget what the amount is, maybe 8 trees in this location. The application was to remove 8 trees, although 3 of them are on private property, so it's really for 5 trees. But they're going to plant trees for each unit. There's going to be units in the front, in the back, and trees down Portland where there are no trees at this time. So this is the aerial view. So I don't have my pointer, but yeah.
Which one do we do?
So I just want to show,
Sorry.
just want to point out where the trees are. They're along Canes. There's 5 trees. There's kind of 4 in a row and then 1 lone tree there. And then there's a couple trees in what's now a parking lot that are in the plans to remove also. So the applicant is looking for a recommendation for City Council to approve removal of the trees.
Are there any clarifying questions from members of the commission before we have public comment?
I do have a question. I'm wondering, what's the time frame for the proposed removal?
That's a good question that maybe someone else can answer.
Hey, my name's Lisa Vilhauer with Brandon Development. We're the developer on the project. We're probably looking at early next spring to start construction. So I assume at that time they'd be coming down, and then about 16 months or so after, we'd be able to plant the new trees in the same locations or close enough by. They kind of shift each way to get through driveways. So.
Do we have a picture of the plan that would show why? For some reason, I thought I had it in the link here, but I can't find it.
It was in a link in the staff report.
Well, I did go to the site to look at the trees, and one of the issues is that they're in very small tree wells. And so for the most part, the trees have grown into the sidewalk. And so I think in order to replace that sidewalk, it will impact the trees pretty severely. And the design of the development would also impact the trees.
I have a question for staff. So why is this a recommendation to the council rather than just our action on it?
Good evening. I'm Ann Hirsch. I'm the planning manager. I actually haven't been to a Parks, Recreation, Open Space meeting before, so I'm a new face here. To answer your question, we're taking this with a complete package, including the project entitlements from Planning and Zoning Commission for the council to look at as one complete development application. So we're looking to you for a recommendation as they're the final approving body for the request.
What's triggering council requirement for council approval on this?
Basically, we're taking all the entitlements together, the idea being that they would look at it as one complete package. This would kind of streamline it. It would also effectively negate the need to have an appeal filed because they would be looking at a complete package of all the project requests.
I guess the question is, I think the question is, why go to city council and why not just through planning and zoning commission or that kind of thing?
Well, we knew that this would be one step in the process later on while the application is under review. Our thinking was to bring this forward as one, the full project scope so that the council has that when they're looking at the development application.
Does the city council look at every proposed building project in the city?
It depends on the entitlements. In this case, this has a density bonus application, so they are the final reviewing body for density bonus.
Okay, density bonus. So that's what triggered it.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a question about the redevelopment. So, I mean, obviously it's proposed. Can you just show me, if you can just point to where the trees would be, where the existing trees are right now, and what, is it the north or, the top?
This is Canes, and so the existing street trees that John presented are on this side of the street. So based on this rendering, you would have 5 replacement trees, and then you would have 3 on Portland where there currently are any street trees.
I'm wondering if, the comment about the tree well size, is there an opportunity to widen that tree well to accommodate a larger species?
I would assume so, but I would defer to John's expertise on appropriate species.
I think the question is to do with whether there's adequate space to enlarge the well to make it so that other species could be in there, because I think there's probably ADA requirements on the sidewalk width and things like that.
Yeah, I think there is some flexibility there.
Well, it's there in the diagram. They're lengthened, not widened, because there's not really room to widen. Canes is a pretty narrow sidewalk.
Just as we rarely get an opportunity to plan, so it's just something that we encounter is these problems with the capacity of these tree wells to accommodate big trees. And, the perspective, and so these are big trees that are coming down, which, we have to weigh the sort of cost benefits with big trees and new development, which would provide affordable housing. But I just want to make the comment, with the climate action plan that's coming through, one of the positives about big trees is not just carbon sequestration, it's urban heat island effect. So it actually can shade those houses and provide a lot of cooling for those houses. And so, but then we're limited by tree well capacity. So I'm just wanting to kind of back end into, is there a possibility for bigger tree wells so that we can accommodate bigger trees for the hotter weather that we are experiencing already?
Yeah, I think that's a point well taken, and I think that's also something that this body can make as a recommendation in their review of the application.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions before we open for public comment?
Just quickly, just about the number of trees. So they're removing a couple in the parking lot, or maybe 4 in the parking lot? As I'm looking, there's
3.
There's 3 in the parking lot, and then the 5 here. And I see 2 on the, I guess, the north side of the parking lot. I see 4 in the parking lot, or maybe it's just one oddly, no, it looks like 2. Anyway. Okay, so there's 3 in my map. Maybe my map is wrong. Yeah, maybe it's just 1 on the end. Okay, so there's no net gain of trees, it looks like. They're, the ones that are currently in the parking lot will be replaced with ones on Portland. So 3 on Portland, 5 on Canes, and so we end up with 8.
Well,
And then there might be additional ones in the backyard.
there's net gain in the.
The street tree.
Right of way, yeah.
Right, in the right of way, okay.
Also, the plan,
Does show trees in the backyards and,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I guess they're front yards or no, that is backyard, but yeah, trees in the backyard and on
I
the
think they
side.
shift, yeah.
On the north side of the project too.
Yeah, that looks good. I just, yeah.
There's trees in this, you can't see, well, you can see a little bit. There's a plant list, so the basins all have plants, other plants, shrubs, and smaller plants.
Sure.
included, so.
Sure. No, that's good, thank you. I just,
So sorry, I didn't catch that answer. Is there added, is it more than the trees that will be replaced?
It will be. There's 3 more in the public right-of-way, 3 on the Kane side, and then there's trees planned for the backyard. There's a couple different diagrams. I don't know if there's, what are we showing here, 10 trees, it looks like? There's 5 or 10 trees where there were 3 in the backyards, in the on the property side, and 3 on the north side, so 10 or 8 trees additional on property, 3 trees in the public right-of-way additional.
Okay, thank you.
Has the Planning Commission reviewed and provided a recommendation on this?
Yes, they reviewed it at their September 11th hearing.
And what was their recommendation?
They forwarded a recommendation to City Council to approve the project.
Do any members of the public
I
wish?
have another-
Oh,
I have
sorry,
another
go ahead.
question, sorry. So has the city or the applicant considered any alternative project designs that would not require the removal of the trees, particularly a rear-loaded project design?
Yeah, I mean, this is now the 3rd iteration of this design scheme. So this project's been kicking along for several years now. The previous iterations, though, for the most part, did propose the elimination of those street trees to accommodate driveways. There's also, kind of do an approximation, there's a PG&E and undergrounding that has to be corrected. So there's some utility work that's also at play, which affects the site planning.
So I guess the answer would be is yes, you did consider alternative configurations, and it was decided that that was infeasible.
Right.
Okay.
Do any other commissioners have clarifying questions? This time, we'll open this up to public comment. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? Of course.
I just wanted to touch on the widened tree wells. I think the problem, so where you'll see our driveway starting, that would be the property line. So the sidewalk's kind of already positioned there. I was trying to pull it up really quick. I don't know the width of that sidewalk, but really I don't think we have room, unfortunately, because of where they're located with the stairs, to push the sidewalk any into the property, if that makes sense, for the public sidewalk. If the sidewalk could be reduced to enlarge that tree well, I think we could do it. Or we could also look at, I don't know how it would work with the design, but also the ones, they do have the ADA ones that you can plant if you want. We are currently proposing crepe myrtles, so not a huge tree. So, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Ed Fields. I live on this block. You're asking good questions. I've not heard a good answer yet. Why do these healthy, mature trees need to be removed? It says they need to remove them. That's what it says. Says there seems to be no alternative to the placement of the ADA retrofit. What does that mean? I don't understand the staff report. There are 9 townhouses proposed to be built. One of them is sort of designated as an ADA unit, and its entrance is on Portland, not on Keynes. Okay? There are 5 driveways, or curb cuts, if you will, and 9 garages. So 4 of those driveways serve 2 garages. So I did what anyone would do. I went down to the corner with a tape measure and some chalk, and I marked out very precisely, according to the plan, the location of the proposed driveways. And only one tree, the small tree, the northernmost tree, the one that's sort of separated from the other 4, is the only one that interferes with any of the proposed driveways. So I will ask the question again, why do these healthy, mature trees need to be removed, except because we keep saying they need to be removed? And plant them with crepe myrtles, which many of you are new on the commission. You don't want to hear my story about crepe myrtles. My neighborhood is full of them, and they're tearing up the sidewalk. And I tried to get them off the list, but we disagreed, and I lost, and they're on the list. So let's plant crepe myrtle saplings and tear up the sidewalks. These trees are 50 years old, some of them, and they are doing a little bit of damage to the sidewalk, but considering that they're in wells that are too small, they're doing pretty good. And those wells could be lengthened, if not widened. So I have 2 other quick comments, try to squeeze into my minute here. According to section 2.1, you're not supposed to consider tree removal until it's been a city-approved project, and this project has not yet been approved by the city because it needs approval from the city council. So you're kind of jumping the gun in a way. There's been no discussion at Planning and Zoning that I recall about tree removal. There's just reference to replacement trees. And I've already forgotten. Oh, the other thing that you might just want to be aware of is that the staircases protrude out right up to the public right-of-way. Now, that's not really in your purview, but it kind of affects walking down the sidewalk and having mature trees. So they've asked for many waivers of regulations, and that's one of them, which isn't really necessary, but they've asked for it, and the Planning and Zoning Commission approved it. So again, why are we removing 4 trees that aren't in the driveways of the proposed project and planting new saplings? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. At this time, I'd like to bring this topic back to the commission to open discussion. Sorry, anyone else would like to make comments, please step up, sorry.
So, yeah, my name is Dwight, and I live at 711 Keynes. So these trees are actually, I lived there for 20 years, and I've seen these trees grow. I'm a tree lover, actually. I have planted 3 trees, one on the sidewalk. And in answer to Ms. Frank's question, I have a cherry tree approved by the city in a well that's smaller than here. It grew fine. So I totally support the recommendation to remove these trees. As I see it grow, I liked it at first, but now it's getting out of hand. It's humongous. It's breaking out of the tree wells. It's busting up the sidewalk. It's not a native tree. It's kind of like a eucalyptus. It's flammable, and the tree's affecting the wires. And I personally, I think it's becoming a public hazard. With the sidewalk breaking up, the fire danger, and it's just not I like trees, but it's not a native tree. I think the plan to remove these trees and put something that fits the tree well, take a lot of consideration into what you're planting, I think that's a wonderful idea. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the tree has become like a hiding place for crime, property crime. It's big, it blocks all lights, and there's people hiding there. They're dumping their junk there. They're scouting out cars. I walk by there at night, and I get scared. And there's people, like I say, they're dumping things. So I think I don't know anything about this project, whether you develop it or not. I think it's a great idea to take these trees out that have outgrown their hole and become a nuisance, and actually put some nice trees that will fit the neighborhood and bring beauty to the neighborhood, and not, be a place where criminals, people can commit property crime there. And so that's what I have to say. I really, and I'm here I talked to my neighbors, and they strongly support the recommendation to, remove and replace. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Would anyone else in the public like to make a comment on this item? Okay, at this time, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Can we start with having the developer answer the question from the public?
I'm fine with that. Would you like to step up and respond to some of the comments, or?
And the one specific question was, a tape measure appears to reveal that the existing trees don't need to be moved for the proposed driveways. And what's your take on that? And if that's true, why do you want to still remove those trees?
I haven't personally gone out and measured tape measure by tape measure to put it out there. I think, as the other neighbors spoke to, these trees are getting large. I understand that they're healthy. I don't think that they're that attractive as a tree. They're not a native tree. While I understand there is, saving a tree, but it also is to the point that that sidewalk is going to need to be removed, as most sidewalks are in new development. We could save those trees if they are out of the sidewalks. I personally don't feel that they're bringing that quality that we could bring. Maybe it's not a crepe myrtle, maybe it could be a different tree. And I think it could bring a really nice quality to have a new, different tree there that's been well taken care of, is growing correctly, is kept not breaking up the sidewalk, not tripping people, not causing tripping hazards. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, John. So what's your opinion on all of that, on all of this? You're our city arborist. You put thought into appropriate tree species. You think about the aesthetic qualities of trees and the relationship to the streetscape. What's your professional opinion on this issue?
I think everyone has some good points here. They're healthy trees. They are breaking up the sidewalk a little bit, but with sidewalk repair, we can open the basins a little bit. They are a really dense tree. They've been there. I've seen campers and things parked there, vans for I don't know how long, people kind of living there. But that's, right now, there's a brick wall behind it. There's nothing else really there. There's no buildings or anything. So that would probably change. And I've seen garbage dumped there. There's often garbage dumped on the corner. The trees themselves, it's a really dense tree, the Melaleuca tree. It's really, really dense. It could be pruned out. It could be lifted up. It could be thinned out a little bit. Eventually, it's going to become a dense tree again. Power lines, not really an issue, because we're only talking about the high voltage power lines, which are at the top of the pole there. Those are all communications, low voltage wires. Yeah, it's difficult for me. I mean, if we're talking uniformity for the project, there's uniformity there. There's, 4 of those trees, I imagine, would be able to stay there. The last tree is actually a different species of the same genus. It's a slightly different Melaleuca, but so there'd be uniformity in species, maybe not size and shape, but basically, the same tree there. They're not over-mature trees. They're mature, but they're not over-mature, so they have some life left enough to them. If it were my choice, we'd try to keep them there. I didn't measure, I'm not sure what the width of the sidewalk is there either, so it might be difficult to widen the tree basins, but they can be lengthened as the plan for the new trees would have done.
For the power lines, when are they planned to go underground, or are they at this location?
I would think it's low priority, because,
Not like what we're doing along Marin.
yeah, the priority is the busier streets around schools, commercial zones, all that.
I noted in the photo of the street, maybe I was looking over your shoulder, but I don't think there are a lot of trees on the other side of the street, unless I'm mistaken. And I wondered if, I guess they have a couple, but I just wondered if the city ever, or the developer, or anybody ever offers trees to the other side of the street when we take some away, or I'm not sure if that's a reasonable suggestion, but it strikes me that part of what people may respond to, in the short term anyway, is kind of concrete jungle feeling when you take out all of the trees and then you have a lot of sidewalk. As I look at it now, I see those two big ones, though, at the far end.
Those are two camphors that are not in such great condition.
Okay.
So I don't see too many years left in those trees, actually.
Is it ever done where there is some sort of
I mean,
consideration of the full block picture instead of just the project section?
That's for us to consider.
Yeah, that's,
That's us.
I think as it stands now, it's up to each property owner whether they want the tree in front of their house or not.
if you don't mind, if I can speak to that, because I've done a lot of research on the Albany city tree policy, and I think what we found through that process is we don't sort of have this overall guiding principle of how we should deal with these kinds of questions. And other cities like Palo Alto actually do require developers, if they take away a mature, healthy tree for a development project, that they're required to replace a greater number of those trees, especially if they're large trees like this. So not just one-on-one, but one to like 3 or 4. So one of the questions I would have, I mean, I appreciate your sort of honesty about not going out there to check the length, but to me that feels then like we're not, the reason that it was presented to us is not really the ADA necessarily, it's this aesthetic, which I understand, just even looking at the trees, but I don't know, as our commission, is that what we're supposed to do? This is kind of a question for ourselves, are we supposed to approve a tree removal because somebody doesn't think they're that pretty? So it's just, I think something we should consider is for precedent. You know, if we say, okay, ugly tree, doesn't matter if it's 88, you should just recognize that we're setting precedent when we make those kinds of decisions.
And I agree with that assessment. That's what I heard from the speaker, that think that that's what's before us, is that it's, do we remove these for aesthetic reasons? That's my understanding of what we're being asked to do.
I would concur. I guess what I heard is that it's not clear to me that there is the need necessarily, and that's what I'd want to be demonstrated to us in order to feel like I could make an informed decision that these trees definitely need to go in order to accommodate the current plan that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And just another thing that generally every time that we have a street tree removal now I think about is the street tree master plan that was approved in our work plan, and I think this situation really does underscore the need to start working on that process so that we have better guidelines and a plan for if they do remove these trees and we want some sort of aesthetic, either diversity or the same kind of tree on a block, we can have that guidance to fall back on.
So I understand.
I have a question. So when is this project scheduled to go before the council?
It would be by the end of the calendar year. So obviously, it's not going to be October. It might be probably late November, early December.
But it sounds like if the trees are compatible with the driveways, which it sounds like they may be, that even if we deny this request, that the project can still move forward.
Well, we don't deny anything. This is just a recommendation of the city council. They're going to consider our recommendation along with the planning commission's recommendations.
Actually, we do deny, but it can't be appealed to council.
That's not what I
Oh,
understand.
well, in this case, right.
So it's sort of, you know, for example, we can recommend that the trees remain, and that we recommend denial of the tree removal permit, and then they'll consider that recommendation along with whatever other entitlements are required for the project.
If we were to recommend that and they were to not go with that, could we then have like a follow-up recommendation? Like if you then decide to remove them, like go with X species of tree instead of crepe myrtle, or, you know, have some other consideration process? Like, because it does sound plausible that they cannot go with whatever.
Yeah, I think that can be part of our recommendation.
Another thing to consider is also what the impact of construction will be on these trees in both the short term and the long term, in that there's going to be a lot of traffic in that area. Just replacing the pavement can damage trees to the point that they fail. And just it's going to be a lot for those trees to take in. So I think part of this decision also needs to be, will the trees even survive the work that's going to be done around them?
That wasn't presented as a concern to us, but that may be something to factor in.
And I'm looking at a picture down the, kind of down the wall. And there are actually some significant limbs that reach over the wall. And it seems like in the plans that will be over like the stairway or the driveway, but it could potentially interfere structurally, and it might interfere certainly with construction. So I don't know if you've considered, if for some reason we weren't going to remove these trees, but they might nonetheless need to be pruned to make it feasible. I don't know if you've looked at that at all. Removing a major limb or something would.
Well, I mentioned that they could be pruned up. They can be pruned back also.
Okay, you could. All right.
And it's also the roots, and to see how extensive the roots are,
Right,
and whether or not there's any possibility of pruning roots, or if that too might kill the trees.
I just want to say this kind of comment, which is, I am sensitive to aesthetics, and I totally understand, in building a new, there's a cement parking lot there now. So this is going to be housing, it's going to be new build. I can totally appreciate wanting the landscaping to sort of reflect that. And I also appreciate all of the questions and comments of the commissioners around being sensitive and mindful of, these are healthy trees, what kind of precedent are we setting? I personally think that sort of how we manage residential street trees and sort of something that's part of a larger commercial development maybe should just be looked at slightly differently. But I don't think that necessarily makes one better than the other. It's just in this case, I can really understand wanting to have that be part of a whole. So I wonder if that precedent question is at all affected by thinking about it as a kind of development, a larger development versus like one homeowner making a decision about a tree? Or does that make it worse in your mind? I'm just kind of curious where others come down on that. And I also second that a master street tree plan would be very helpful for us in these kinds of decisions, because it feels like an opportunity to sort of look at a larger swath and have a sort of future vision about that. And we don't have that opportunity when we're always making the decisions one off or recommendations.
So my thought on this, and I think I'm getting at your point, is that we're being asked to focus just on the tree removal permit, which is one small piece of a larger project. And fortunately, the council is going to look at the project holistically and think not only about the tree removal, but everything else that's associated with the project. And they're going to take our recommendation and consider it with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and make a decision on the project as a whole. And I think because they're looking at it holistically, they might come to a slightly different conclusion than we will about the tree permit, and that's okay. And so my position on this is that as a commission, we should take the position that if a tree is mature and healthy and can be retained as part of a development project, that it really should be. And that in this particular case, I think there are some aesthetic considerations, but for me, they're not compelling enough to go against what I think should be our standard practice. The council may have a different perspective on this and may weigh the aesthetic considerations more than we do, but because of our function as a commission, I think that that's the position that we should take with our recommendation to the council.
I agree 100% with that, and I think whatever we say should also somehow make clear to the council that the developer had no idea whether, or still has no idea whether the trees are actually in the way of the driveways or not, and so that any case made that the trees should be removed due to driveways being somewhere, which is what I believe we were told to consider, actually needs to be based on fact. And so I think we would need to, I would recommend that we would make some sort of statement that percolates its way up to the city council to look for some, that kind of justification if actual facts, if they're being asked to decide on tree removal.
I mean, do we have to, can we ask that they come back next month and provide us that information or provide it in the interim so that we can make a more informed recommendation? Or do we need to make a recommendation tonight?
I think it should just go to the council. They're the decision makers on this project. No need to haul the applicant back in and just let them decide. And, you know, maybe the applicant will choose to provide the council more information that would result in a different decision on their part, and that would be okay.
I think it would be helpful to have a site plan that shows both the proposed trees and the existing ones so we can have a point of comparison.
Yeah, that's a good.
So are you suggesting that they do come back, or you're just saying to the council?
I think just to the council to have that as an additional piece of information.
The other thing, Shelley, I don't know if we ever finalized, do we ever finalize those revisions to the city tree policy? I don't know if that would ever happen with that.
Is that on this topic, though? Yeah, no, it's being held up in Public Works at this moment, so no, it hasn't been finalized, right?
Because one of the things I think we deliberated was like having this sort of treatment of like, if it's a big, healthy tree that we're trying to tear down, then what do we get sort of as a city to replace that with? And so, I mean, I think if we can say, if the council makes an exception and, you know, lets the applicant take down the trees, there's also this point of negotiation. Well, what can we get? You know, we're making an exception for you. Can you then provide the city with more benefit in terms of tree coverage by supporting other trees in other areas and potentially even opening up some, you know, some places, sidewalks that could be opened up for trees? I don't know. I'm just thinking of ways to compromise if this happens. I just want to say that I really appreciate developers coming in to offer more affordable housing in Albany. This is what we need, and so I don't want to discourage this project. And I get the aesthetic considerations, but as Ben and Brian mentioned, I think it's our charge to really be stewards of the urban forest and not to be letting things slide for aesthetic reasons. So that's kind of where I'm at, is that I agree that that should be our recommendation, but with that sort of clause of like, how can we make a deal here if we're going to lose out on these big mature trees that are sequestering carbon and providing lower heat, urban heat island effects, all that.
I feel we only have one agenda item, so why don't you just come on up?
I think I was kind of grossly misunderstood when I was talking about the aesthetics. I personally did not go out and measure that. I do have a team of very talented consultants, architects, civil engineers that were out there and measured, and I am trusting them that when they tell me the tree has to be removed because it's in the way, that it needs to be removed. We are very happy to provide that overlay. It's a really quick to show why they need to be removed. If they don't, and they can survive construction, and you guys want to keep them, we can keep them. I really quickly wanted to touch, I can give you some info on other cities. Just briefly, a lot of cities will do like a 3-to-1. totally fair and acceptable. I know the city of Lafayette does a fee. So if you're removing, you count up the size of the trees that you're removing, and you end up paying a fee that they can then go in and use for their kind of urban foresting. So just wanted to touch on those things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other discussion, or is anyone ready to make a proposal or a motion about a recommendation?
I think there's some more.
I think, to be fair, because we did allow you to speak, I'm going to allow you to speak, and this is out of order. Normally, we wouldn't do this, but I want to make sure that we're equitable. And that also means that you, sir, have an opportunity to say one more comment if you'd like. Brings us all.
Thank you very much. I just real quick, I just feel like maybe my comments wasn't taken seriously because I was not talking about the aesthetics of the tree as much as the trees have become like a public hazard. Number one, the buckling of the sidewalk, and also because the tree is so dense, it's become a cover for a lot of minor crimes and petty crimes right now, and especially dumping garbage, people living there, and people using that as a way to scout our neighborhood. So I'm really concerned about the not just aesthetics, but the danger to the neighborhood. I lived there 20 years, so it's gotten worse.
Thank you very much.
To address that, though, I guess I wonder if that is maybe also a function of not having housing there, having a wall there, and maybe not necessarily having a big tree there. Like, to me, when I think of places where the crime occurs more, it's not in places where there's like people and residences.
Yeah, I think housing there would help, and also trimming it up a little would help, and thinning it out a little.
Just anecdotally, I also have lucky enough to have big trees that are dense in front of my yard, and we just have residential houses all along, and we don't experience that problem.
I'd just like to say crime isn't a tree issue. Crime is a different issue. It's a police issue. It's not, we can't blame crime on trees. So.
Okay, great. At this time, I am going to close public comment on this topic, and I also want to ask if there's any final comments or discussion from commissioners, or if anyone would like to make a motion or propose a recommendation.
Well, I would just say that I do think there's a reason these are being proposed, and I agree that I don't know if we have adequate information here. I would like to see the overlay. That's what I would want to see. Because when I look too, just kind of looking here and just kind of, it looks like these are kind of in the same place as the ones that are going to be going in. So that does make it feel like an aesthetic version. I am curious to know what the consequence for trying to save these trees would be for construction, and how successful that would be, because chances are heavy equipment in there. And I mean, just, I've got pictures of the sidewalk. There's going to be some significant trimming just to get the sidewalks close to flat, and so the trees may not survive anyway. So those are kind of that's kind of what I'm thinking of supporting the applications, because, kind of on a pragmatic perspective, I can see they're likely not to survive anyway. On the other hand, I do feel like we kind of have inadequate information to make a full
I think we can provide a nuanced recommendation to the council along the lines of, based on the information that we have, we were unable to support the tree removal.
Yeah.
It's possible that the applicant and city staff will provide additional information, which may justify the tree removal, at which case, obviously, it's at the council's discretion
that sounds good.
to decide.
I think you should make that a motion, but maybe add to it that if they do decide to go ahead with the tree removal, to consult the urban forester to select a different tree species that would be appropriate for the location, and also consider increasing the number of trees, since they're removing a mature tree, to say like 2-to-1 ratio.
She was recommending 3-to-1, so why?
Okay, 3-to-1 ratio.
Also, if we could add in that, see if we can maximize the tree well space. If we can't do the width, at least the length, to accommodate a bigger tree species.
Yeah, to really think creatively about what possibilities, if any, there are to increase that will.
The plans are already showing
Yeah, they're long.
dramatically wider or longer. So I'm confident.
That is a robust motion, and I trust.
Can you repeat
Shelley-
that?
I
captured all
trust
of
that
that.
Shelley got most of it down. Do we have a second?
Can we have it stated? We need to know
Do
what
you
we're
need
voting
it to
on.
be resummarized?
I think after Commissioner Noble's part of it, what else did you want included?
Looking
past
at this potential expansion of the size of the tree wells, if they go forward with removal, ensuring that there's consultation with the urban forester to look at appropriate other species, perhaps besides a crepe myrtle, and
A multiplier.
increase the ratio of replacement trees to potentially 3 to 1, as per other cities.
About replacement trees, when we're talking about replacement trees, and I don't know, I know we're talking about other cities, but are those specifically street trees or just any trees on the development? Do you know?
I think it was that you could do it any, good question. I think it could be on the development itself.
Because they're already showing 10, 12, 13 additional trees over what's currently.
Yeah, it still wouldn't be the 3 to 1. So I think
That would be more than.
if it's 5 trees,
And they've got 5, and they're going to plant 8 and then 12 more. That's 20.
12 more? Is that what's proposed?
Well, I mean,
still
I was
never
just-
got
I
a
was
clear
just-
answer.
The whole back, and there's
So-
some others, and then
Yeah,
the
I
3 on
think
the
that would,
sides.
yeah, I mean, if we want to,
I mean,
you want to lose the deal, the deal.
I'm just saying,
No, I get it, yes.
there's
I
not a lot of
think-
room.
I'm not
There's not
sure.
room for 20 trees.
No, I think it would be somewhere else, though. I think it would be putting into this pot that the city could use somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe you might know, and it's something that we could look into with other cities. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, it's often, around the Bay Area, it's very common to have a 3 to 1 ratio or a different ratio depending on the size of the tree being removed. And it's usually it could be a street tree or it is on the development itself. And sometimes trees are placed in other locations.
Sure.
So we have an active motion before the commission. Do we have a second for that motion?
I second.
Okay, everyone in favor? All those opposed? Anyone abstaining? No? Okay. So that will move forward with the language that I know Shelley captured perfectly. Thank you all for your comments. And so at this time, we're going to take the Albany Local recap presentation from staff as our final agenda item. It's going to be really interesting. Okay. I just wanted to.
You leaving us? You don't want to see this? I wanted to give you just a recap really quickly, and not to take too much of your time. It'll take maybe 3 minutes. But we just completed Albany
We've got
Local
about
Week.
2 hours, don't we?
As you know, in Albany Local Week, we started in 2012, and it's a challenge to residents to do everything in Albany for 1 week, and then we do a lot of events, and we partner with businesses, so it's kind of a feel-good week for Albany. We had 35 businesses that were in our activity guide that we list specials for, and residents get this crazy scorecard, and they do things around town, either events or volunteer, and they keep track of points. So this year, we actually made 2 categories. We had a youth category and an adult category, and Lisa Burbage and Ulysses McIntyre were honored at the council meeting on Monday, and here they are. That's Eva Phelan. She is one of our senior supervisors and council, so that was great. We also honored at this council meeting, we call it our AV Apprentice Program, which we started about 6 years ago, and these kids apply. They're in high school. They can be also in middle school as well. Apply to be our apprentice, and they work on all of our events and learn audiovisual skills. So those, if you see them running around with, 14-year-olds running around with really expensive cameras, they're actually taking beautiful videos and have compiled a lot of information. So they learn really great skills. And the nice thing about this is that we have hired, I think in our 6 years, probably 15 of these kids to be part-timers that work for us. So it's just been a great program for us. And so they work September. Usually they have a really big Dinner with Albany event to really tire them out. So everybody who enters the Albany Local Week gets the sticker that you got. This is our Abbey Road rendition of the turkeys. And so just here's a quick rundown. We did a pop-up parklet in front of Mr. Dewey's, which was great. It was open all day. We had music and people came by, and we partnered it with the Bike About Town, which is, Bike About Town was started to get families together, learn how to ride around in a city and how to obey the traffic rules and ride on our bike-friendly routes. And we had about 30 riders at Bike About Town, and they finished at the parklet, so it was a little celebration there. We do these swap-oramas and swaps and fix-it clinics. And this one at Albany Local Week is a big one. It's sewing, so you can fix and repair clothes and things and also repair your sewing machine. So it's one of our biggest ones. Marin Monster is actually a 10K that runs up to the top of Marin, and then it winds back down. And we had about 44 people that participated in that. There's a few pictures. This is the parklet. We had some games and things. Here's some of our riders. We had 5 riders under 10 that took on this route. That's when they finished. These are Marin Monster people. They are crazy, and we actually do have a giant purple monster at the top of Marin to greet them. The Senior Center had, during Local Week, had a World's Fair, which was new, and they had like 75 people that participated, and they had a free lunch for seniors. And then they do a Senior Center open house, and they had 300 people participate in that. And they had breakfast for 30, lunch for 125 seniors, and then 50 dinners. So a little bit of silliness with our the senior population. But they put together this great program. So if you had never been to the Senior Center, you could go and try out any one of the frequent classes that they offer, and then also get lunch or meet somebody. Or it looks like they did karaoke for the first time, which was great too. Here they are, I think, probably having dinner or lunch in the Senior Center. We do a local garden swap. If you know it or not, we do it, and we have been doing that for a number of years. It encourages neighbors to, if you have too many tomatoes, bring them over because someone has too many lemons. And that happened during Local Week. And then Music in the Park is one of the big ones. We had about 6,000 people that attended over the 4 concerts. Our last concert was our biggest. And if you've ever gone, you can measure it by how much grass is taken up. So the last concert, they were actually into the cement area near the pool set up. So it was just a lot of fun. And these are things that our AV apprentice do. This is all run in-house. So Jeremy, our KALB manager, runs the sound table, and our team of recreation people and volunteers set up all of this and take it down each night. There's just a couple of pictures of it. It's a great event. And this is, Commissioner Abbott can chime in on this. The Chamber does Best of Albany, so it's a voting. You've probably seen that go out, and they gave out the awards for all of the best places in Albany. And they list the winners on the Chamber's website. Is it up?
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
As of the next morning.
Oh,
I'll have you know.
Wow, very good, very good. Which is so great for the Chamber, because then they have this like list. So if you look up where should I have breakfast, you see these top candidates, these top 3 places in Albany. So it's a good resource list for people who are coming through. We do Food Truck Friday, which was awesome. We had about 4 trucks out there. And then we do a cleanup event, and we had 30 people volunteer at Terrace Park for our cleanup event. And then we finish it off basically with an As You Wish. The yogurt shop sponsors the movie night, and we had 100 people to see Back to the Future. So a couple of pictures. This is where we set up our Food Truck Friday. And then I love when the kids are there volunteering. So that was our Friends of Albany Park event. And that is my recap.
That is so impressive. There's just incredible events, and you and your team do such an amazing job. So it's really impressive.
Yeah, Brennan, Eva, if you've ever seen them, Liam out there, as we said, Jeremy, and then we have this small army of volunteers and people. Everybody is involved. So it's just it's a nice week. Yeah.
I also wanted to say I've been like walking around a lot, and there've been a lot of those block parties that I think you guys support, and so I got to see like a movie as we were walking home from a park, and my kids last night was like, "Can we go walk around and see if there's a movie on the street?"
Yeah, isn't that fun?
So I've been seeing Brennan everywhere, and just want to commend him particularly. And Music in the Park was like spectacular, so well done. And then also I was at Terrace Park recently, and there's wood chips now, and also it looked like the sand was replenished. So you guys have been busy and doing great stuff.
Yes, yes. People were excited at the Terrace Park cleanup. Got really good positive feedback on the putting in the 5 bar and the sand. And you can, and one of my first customers, when we started doing block movie nights, was Harriet, went to her house, and I would go to people's houses and describe why they should have a block party, so that they could meet their neighbors, so that when, disaster strikes, you would actually know who your neighbor was and maybe be willing to give them your phone number. And so we started doing block movie nights as a way to get people together and share a meal and have a movie. So if you do see one, you can pull up a chair. They are city events, and watch a movie.
Just putting on my Chamber of Commerce hat a little bit, you do understand the irony of Local Week having a food truck event, right? Of bringing the restaurants in from out of the city for.
Sure.
I'm just putting that out there.
And I will tell you that we always offer the local food trucks the first opportunity to participate in it.
Yeah, okay.
We do.
Okay,
That's
just
why
put it
usually,
out
because
there.
we only have a couple, but we've had the one, you'll see them at 4th of July as well. But the one is Bofo Cart, which is Sam's Log Cabin. So we usually make that offer to them first.
Just, there you go.
I think if there, go ahead.
Well, for future agenda items, I wanted to see what people had. I was, of course, whenever we hear something about Proposition 68, please do let us know, because it sounds like some of that reporting deadlines have come and gone, or when they're supposed to tell us already. So hopefully the state will catch up on that. And then any information, if you could give quick, even just informational updates, Shelley, next month on things that are in public works that we know, for example, the bocce court, Albany Hill, you gave a brief thing today, and then mountain bike park, other things that we've been tried to put into motion, find out where they're at.
Yes.
I think, did we talk about the dog park subcommittee? Maybe it got slipped, but just wondering how we can incorporate that in at least the next month, because we've been approached by a Boy Scout troop to get some assistance with the dog park, with Section B dog park amenities.
And clock is ticking
So
on that.
just to clarify, what you're asking is, we had talked about, should the dog park subcommittee that was talking about what we should have transform into the subcommittee that was going to help determine what the amenities were? And you're saying, could we put that on the agenda? Or
Yeah, not sure. I guess we've been, just as this kind of an update, but we've been approached by a high school.
Eagle Scout candidate.
Yeah.
It's an Eagle Project.
who wants to, looks to
Yes.
help with that?
Yeah,
perhaps.
and so there's a time issue because
gotta
they're
get-
available now, and we have the funding now potentially. So
I don't think that we ended the subcommittee. I don't think that we decided to.
And we had, the subcommittee had a plan. So I think, I believe if we're prepared to put something on the agenda, we'll have something for you. I think that's.
Yeah, so that would be a request
crazy
then
busy, but I
to
think-
put the dog park subcommittee on the agenda.
We'll have a,
Yeah.
Great, so that would be for November.
And then I just found out that Margot will be here in December with an Albany Hill vegetation management update and a creek maintenance update. So I know those have been on your.
sorry, do we, the pickleball, is that going to come back to us soon?
Yeah, it just did not happen in September. Yeah, some
Sure,
further
no problem.
discussion needs to take place. Yeah, so I think Chair Patterson and I will get together and firm up a plan for how to bring that back.
And then just because we're laying everything out, the master tree plan, which came up, just wondering how our commission can sort of push that forward.
So November, unlike October, may be a longer meeting. We'll see. Okay.
So it sounds like now that the work is starting on Albany Hill, maybe the interpretive sign subcommittee should do things. Sorry for not, so let's coordinate. And I don't think it'll be the November meeting, but possibly like the December meeting, we could have something to bring forward. A future agenda item.
Awesome.
Do we have a December meeting?
Yes.
just not August.
Any other comments, final comments about agenda items or anything before we adjourn? Meeting is adjourned. Everyone can go home.
And will.